Welcome to the weekend. Boy, it's been a long day. So we just went over season 2 for Stranger Things. Oh, by the way, welcome to the HolmFront. I'm Tyler, your host. This is Mitch, my overly artistic friend. You can tell we're a little bit tired. So we just did season 2. We talked a little bit about what type of a sequel it was, what makes it a decent sequel, what makes it a good entry. Won you back over from your cynicism.
Yeah.
But it still has its faults, namely the Warrior episode. We'll just call it the Warrior episode because it's funny that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so today we wanted to go into what makes a decent sequel, and we're going to try and just keep it relegated mostly to Stranger Things.
Yeah, I think that gives it some focus, which is important because otherwise we could just what should a sequel do?
It's let's go to all the great sequels of all time and the bad ones. Why not? But I wanted to, you brought up a point that I thought we'll just quantify. We'll set the parameters in that. So there's different ways to view your sequel and what it's trying to accomplish based on how far down the road you're going to go with your property.
Yeah.
But Stranger Things, obviously now is going to have 5 seasons, and they probably knew that. Seems like they were pretty, they thought ahead quite a bit. They probably did a whole lot of outlining, so they knew.
Yeah, I would be shocked if they didn't have that structure.
They knew enough. Like they had all the basic plot points. It seems they had all basic plot points, and the world was built. So that's all they. Anything else is just kind of minor changes. Like if they have to change the character or give it some minor tweaks or something to maybe some of the relationship dynamics or whatever. So season 2 is obviously just the second entry of 5. So it has a little bit less weight on its shoulders than if it was the second entry out of 3 or something.
Yes.
So, for instance, when you have Empire Strikes Back or Two Towers or Terminator, Terminator 2 less so, I guess. Those ones are second entries in the classic 3-entry length.
A trilogy.
A trilogy, yeah, but it's a 3-act structure of the story.
Yes, exactly.
Stranger Things does not follow that traditional thing, so it doesn't have the same parameters as something like Star Wars or whatever. So, given that it's a TV show, long form, it's a little bit more like a book series.
Yeah, it's almost like Harry Potter, where it's kind of like a Chamber of Secrets season. You can more contextualize it that way.
Which will probably be more similar to the show when it comes out someday. But so how do you see it also as similar to Chamber of Secrets? Like why Chamber of Secrets? Just because that's the sequel?
Well, no, because Chamber of Secrets is the Harry Potter story that's almost like verbatim the first book all over again. Just kind of it's different, but it's not different enough that it calls attention to itself and develops an identity that's strong in and of itself. The first one is always going to have that identity because it introduces us to the characters in the world. And then that second one is just this kind of nice, easy blip between transitions to the more developed ideas that are going to come down the line. I mean, when you read the book, Chamber of Secrets, and I mean the movies to an extent too, they establish a lot of really important things that do matter for the long haul, but it's not things that are going to really stick with you as oh yeah, that's the one with the Godric Gryffindor sword. You won't really make that connection because at the end of the day, you could theoretically just use any sword in the last movie. It doesn't seem like it's paramount that we have the Godric Gryffindor sword, right? So I like what Rowling does where she's able to recontextualize the whatever it was, the item that they destroy or the diary as one of the Horcruxes. I like that call to it, how she makes it fit in with the larger objective that she has. But it's also one of those things, if it wasn't there, it could have just been a fun entry, if that makes sense. Whereas
so it fits regardless, but she was able to, therefore she did add further context to it to make it more rich.
Yeah, and like you said, that was probably a planned thing, like with Stranger Things, where it's, okay, I'm anticipating this outcome, so I can do this now.
Sure.
I think this is actually a really difficult but very crucial step in the writing process, because if you're doing the long form format, you have to think about maintaining this it has to piggyback off of the first one, but not so much that it feels totally irrelevant and that nothing new is added whatsoever.
Right.
So it kind of has to serve a day in the life of this world. And I think that's a real challenge, but I also feel like it's real proving ground too. If you can nail that second entry out of a longer structure, it will give you a sense of, okay, well, that's what Harry Potter looks like. That's what Stranger Things looks like. So everything should be referring back to like 1 and 2. Having one example of something is sometimes harder to be like, oh, well, that's how the first one did it. That's how the first one did it. It's like, well, the first one was still kind of, growing into itself. So sometimes, like, yeah, I agree that's like, the original source of it, but it can also just be the one that has, to shoulder like the introduction of everything, as opposed to sequels a little more free.
So after an introduction, do you feel like Stranger Things should have been more aggressive with its season 2, or is that something where you would just really slow it down and just make sure it's just the breather season? Like, all right, you've got to
Yeah.
really get into all the details here. So obviously there's enough to like keep it moving, but you do want to slow it down quite a bit. Like, is that how you see season 2 of Stranger Things?
Yeah, that's how I view
In
it.
the
Is
format?
it's
Okay.
it's just like Chamber of Secrets, where it's this slowed down entry, and it just gives you a time to just enjoy and be in the world for the most part,
Gotcha.
which is harder. Like that's easier said than done, because you have to, like, you're gonna naturally want to like expand and evolve, which they do, but it's like it's incrementally, right? It has to be these small steps that don't rock the boat too much. I'd be curious to see something that really does rock it, because when you think of entries that do that, like what you brought up, like Empire Strikes Back, for example,
Sure.
that's in the context of a trilogy. So half of what it's doing is continuing New Hope, but the other half of what it's doing, like ultimately, is really just establishing Return of the Jedi. It's trying to get Return of the Jedi to land the way that it's supposed to.
Right.
So Stranger Things season 2 and Chamber of Secrets, they're entries that don't really care about the final season very much.
Right.
They can play into it, but if it didn't, it'd be like, whatever.
But that's with the knowledge that they're more along that three act structure as opposed to something a lot longer form. Because the other thing that they've got there in Stranger Things is the time. They're like, well, it's typically 8 episodes. I think it's 9 for season 2, and it's 8 for season 1. I can't remember the 3 and 4, but
3 is 8 as well.
okay. So yeah, they've got so much more time to spread those things out. You can kind of create 3 act structures, I guess, in the seasons themselves, but that take too much time and effort for us to break down like that. It's more of just like how season 2 did, piggybacking off season 1, but also making sure that it's setting up enough, because that is something another sequel or a sequel has to do in the context of a larger form of the world building. So if you have 5 seasons that you've got to come along, you've got to set things up for those next seasons. So Empire does have that burden, but it has more of that burden considering there's only 3. So there's not a whole lot of room to breathe outside of continuing New Hope and setting up Return of the Jedi. Like it is a standalone movie on its own. It really doesn't exist too well outside of where it lands in the middle of that trilogy. Whereas season 2, it's a little bit easier to access. Obviously, it's better if you watch season 1, but it's easier to access by itself because it has that room to breathe and take that time. So it's another interesting thing about this format.
Yeah, you think that's intentional because it brings in a newer crowd that don't feel like they have to go back to the original so much?
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, Stranger Things is one of those where it's got not a revolving door, but it is constantly bringing in new concepts and new ideas on a couple different layers, which is interesting because one, they're trying to pull in the inspiration sources, which you guys will see more of with these mini episodes. But the second thing it's doing is that it's reaching out to its audience, and it expands that audience by basically it's almost like a fan service type of show. Because like you experienced this as a kid, right? If you grew up in the 80s or 90s, like these are things that you know. And so it brings that in via characters, via references, via aesthetics. So when you get to season 2, for instance, you have the tomboy female character that comes in and joins the boys group, the boys club. There we go. And then you have Billy, who's like the bad boy 80s character that most people understand, either from their experiences or the pieces of art that they consumed from back then. And then it expands the lore of Stranger Things as well. So you have the Demodogs that reference back to the first season, so it's not a huge jump from one type of creature to another, but it also makes those references like Alien and all that kind of stuff. So there's things in there that people are going to recognize that maybe they're more drawn to than the first season, because the first season has a lot more burden on its shoulders to draw in as much as possible in order to justify a second season. So it doesn't have to get everybody, but a big enough crowd. Whereas second season is like, all right, we can take our time, slow down, and then throw a little bit more in there to maybe expand our audience a little bit, pull more people in, and maybe they'll go to season 1 if they haven't already. And then season 3 and 4 would subsequently like continue that trend.
Yeah. How do you feel about, because, obviously when Stranger Things goes to season 3, then it's like floodgates open.
Sure.
And you could argue the same was with Harry Potter. I mean, season 3 is the one that doesn't have Voldemort in
Episode
it.
3.
Or yeah, book 3, whatever. But yeah, it's the one that doesn't have Voldemort in it, so that's like a big change. And then it's also the one where you get to find out a lot about the like Snape and the crew, and they have like Hogsmeade. So, and then Hogwarts is under guard by the mentors, and just the feel and the vibe is very different as a result. I guess a part of that's filtered through the movies, because the books don't start to feel very differently until book 4. Book 4 is like, whoa, okay, this is something different.
Okay.
But yeah, I kind of feel like do you, but like keeping it on Stranger Things, because that one is a clearer structure, that like, do you like that kind of middle chapter, that sort of comfort food, just enjoy Stranger Things while you can before everything changes about it? Or is that like not important to you? Or do you feel like if you had if Stranger Things season 3 was just like season 2, and then season 4 was just like season 2 as well, but then season 5 they kick into gear, and then they do like a 6, and then it changes, like
you'd make it too stale. Yeah,
you feel that way?
You'd be overstaying your welcome, because you have to grow something. You have to add something.
I mean, there'd be new things, but it just wouldn't be so dramatic, is what I'm saying.
So you're saying just be really incremental?
They would be like more scaled back. Like they'd be careful about like the Star Court and the Russian thing. It would be like, let's keep it tight.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I'd be curious on how they would do that, because I don't have the contrast, obviously. I kind of like the way they did it, because you have season 1 and 2. So season 1 is just, it's coming out the gate. So it's got to win people over, period. And then season 2 is more like, it's because it didn't stumble out the gate necessarily, but you never know how that's going to be, and then you never know how far you can walk off of that, right? You're going to have people like you who are like, season 1 was so groundbreaking and so memorable that it's almost like it almost doesn't deserve a second season, because it's just going to make it stale. Like adding more would just kind of, I don't know. It would. What's the word I'm looking for? It would make it. There's too much of it now. It's not as special. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
It would muddy the waters. So that's what you went into, is kind of like, yeah, I don't know if I want more of this, because the more you go, the worse it gets, inevitably. So I would say, as it exists now, having seen 1 through 4, I like having season 2, because and this is the only place that I would make this argument. But that is where I'd be like, hey, it's more Stranger Things. It's kind of great.
Yeah, you hate that argument.
I hate that argument. It's the worst argument in the world. But it is in this context, because I know they didn't just sit there. They didn't go, okay, well, we've already gotten away with this safe play, so we'll just keep on with the safe play. They actually did push themselves. Like it or not, in season 3, they did go in a different direction. In season 4, they really went different directions. Like, they took some big risks and bold risks, and it paid off.
It did.
So, yeah, as it stands, I like the way it is. Yes.
Yeah, I think I would be inclined to agree. My original version in my head of what I thought Stranger Things should have done, which I totally retract now, was just like a Monster of the Week type thing.
Right.
And so each season would still be in Hawkins, and you'd still have like Hopper and maybe some of the other characters.
More like a Goosebumps thing.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
You'd start with a largely new cast in Hawkins, and then do different things. Now, with the context of more of the show, I get that there was so much more intentionality of where they were going with their characters.
Right.
I just didn't read into that in season 1 or season 2, to be honest. So to me, it felt like, all right, well, we're messing with things. And like you said, it just, at what point does this just dilute what we're trying to say? It's like, okay, if we told the story well, because you got to be careful about, it's like you might be thinking like, well, what about like, Elle, we got to find out like what the Hawkins lab and everything. And there is that fine line where you get to the point where they just go back to explain everything.
Sure.
And not everything does need to be explained.
So you lost.
Yes, you lost. Or like that Solo movie where it's just like on and
Right.
on and on, and we're like, just none of this matters
Some of
to
the
us.
mystery is important to the narrative.
Yeah.
And to the property as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to have that. That's the interest that draws people rather than having all the answers.
Yeah.
Because you like the thought of the answers, but deep down you really don't need all the answers.
Right.
So,
It's funny too how I equate it with books a lot. Like books, I'm just thinking now, I'm much more forgiving with the second entry just being more of the same. And that's just like what you can expect from it all the time.
sure.
But with the film, it seems like that's a different ask. I wonder if it's because in a book format, you could have 20 books and the characters age 1 year throughout the whole thing.
Sure.
Or like, it's the span of 20 years, but the characters don't age in it. And that would still make some narrative sense because it's just the adventures that they experience and you just go in and out. But if you translate that to film, obviously you can't do that because people will age in real life. So it does pose this interesting problem that now needs to be solved.
Which is why I think they're doing the right thing and just finding an endpoint and just taking.
Yeah.
There's no reason to continue Stranger Things ad infinitum. Like, it's just like, well, season 5 is good to go.
Mm-hmm.
I think we got a good thing. We don't need to overstay our welcome. Yeah, and I think season 2, because this is probably as close to book format as you're going to get with a film because of the season, because of the length, because of the amount of episodes you get, etc. But you're right. I mean, there are certain factors that are going to limit you as opposed to what a book would do. And I think Harry Potter is actually a pretty good equation because that one, you're introduced to the Wizarding World, you're introduced to Hogwarts, but you don't get a lot of time to explore it. So book 2 or episode 2, season 2, whatever else we do with this thing, gives you the time to explore what you've discovered in the first one. And I think season 2 of Stranger Things is doing something similar. As like, you've been introduced to all this stuff. Now you have some time to like soak it in.
Do some side quests.
Exactly. To kind of just go around and explore the world, go through the open world kind of thing.
When you have a cool world, I think it's even more justified to do that process as well. Because certain ones, like, I don't know, like Terminator, for example. Not that Terminator isn't a cool world, but for the most part, it's just
pretty much just our world with something dragged in that's terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. So there's not really like a lot of like, like learn the spell book or whatever.
Sure.
It's just not that kind of world.
Right.
And then T2 is an interesting example because it doesn't feel at all like there's to continue. It's just meant to be a sequel to the last movie, and that's it. So what's another rendition or a new novel way we could use this concept of this, unstoppable machine? And so it takes some of the ideas that were introduced and then does like a kind of remix thing, which is funnily enough, that's what Stranger Things is all about, is just remixing stuff.
Yeah.
And it becomes this larger commentary about just the nature of telling a story is that you remix. And why is that this like shameful thing that you got to hide? It's like, maybe we just put it up front for the reader or the viewer, right? And then it becomes endearing.
See last week's episode on inspiration versus plagiarism.
Yeah, exactly.
Very much what we went to. Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think they did a great job in retrospect, with more hindsight, I suppose, and then more evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that like Stranger Things is one of those things you're just meant to enjoy, and not picking apart is fun, but it's not. It's just meant to be kind of escapism. Like they're like, we did all the work. Just sit back and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice to know that you can trust someone to do that, and they earn their trust for sure, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's an interesting piece where you can, like, the initial reception, I almost feel like, I mean, I feel like people were pretty positive with Stranger Things. I don't feel like it's ever really had that negative of a low. Maybe with season 3 a little bit, just because season 3 was pushing itself.
Yeah,
is doing a lot of different things.
Which ironically is what Elle does in the season. But go ahead.
Yeah. But yeah, I find it interesting that, if season 2 just wasn't willing to go far enough to do new things, then it's almost like you could criticize it for that. But that's, in hindsight, an unfair criticism, because it's trying to make sure that you're really grounded.
Yeah.
Right. And stabilized, and that you are understanding the dynamics of the character relationships better, and, building the world more, and just kind of getting more familiarized with the place. So that way, when you start adding new things, you have like a more of a smoother transition point from one to the next.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's a waste, like nothing's accomplished. There is important things accomplished in season 2. It's just that they are, when you're just looking at the whole piece, it just seems like it doesn't call attention to itself. It doesn't get, annoyed that you're not paying attention to it.
But with our evaluation, that's what it's trying to do, and therefore it succeeds. I will say the best thing that it does is really make sure that it sits with the characters, and you get to understand everybody a little bit better. And that, and especially L, is make sure that you get a clear understanding of your players, the pieces on the board, before they continue on.
Yeah, and like bringing in new characters, it's a good time to do that. So that way they can experience the newness and then kind of figure out where they slot in. Because anytime you start a new story, or like I say it all the time with games, but picking up a new game is really hard because your brain has to acclimate to all the expectations the game wants of you.
Sure.
And so there's just so many things to memorize of what button does what and how does this mechanic work. And a movie or a story is kind of that way too. You're just absorbing so much that it can become like overstimulating very quickly.
Well, especially if it's really well developed and really well thought out, and the writers clearly have an idea of how the rules work and what all interacts with what and where they're going with it and stuff. You got to make sure that you're kind of not holding the audience's hand, but making sure that they're keeping up so that they don't get lost along the way.
I love that you can just take a free pass if it's crap, if you're just like making some lame sequel and you don't care. But then it doesn't matter the expectations because the investment is so much lower.
Right. These guys, they knew the risks that they had, so I think they did a good job. So 2 thumbs up.
With great power comes great responsibility.
I think we'll end it there. Thank you for watching. So you made it to the end of the video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear what you thought.